was it that led us to the top of the mount, so that we were able to escape the avalanche? And what was it which put that rock in your way as you sank into the bed of dust, and gave me wit and strength to dig you out of your grave? And what is it that has preserved us through 17 years of danger, such as few men have known and lived? Some directing power, some destiny that will accomplish itself in us? Why should the power cease to guide? Why should the destiny be balked at last? He paused, then added fiercely, I tell you, Horace, that if we had guns, food, and yaks, I would not turn back upon our spoor, since to do so would prove me a coward and unworthy of her. I will go on. How? I asked. By that road, he pointed to the glacier. Is it a road to death? Well, if so, Horace, it would seem that in this land men find life in death, or so they believe. If we die now, we shall die travelling our path, and in the country where we perish, we may be born again. At least I am determined, so you must choose. I have chosen long ago. Leo, we began this journey together, and we will end it together. Perhaps Ayesha knows and will help us. And I laughed drearily. If not, come, we are wasting time. Then we took counsel, and the end of it was that we cut a skin rug and the yak's tough hide into strips, and knotted these together until 2 serviceable ropes, which we fastened about our middles, leaving one end loose, for we thought that they might help us in our descent. Next, we bound fragments of another skin rug about our legs and knees, to protect them from the chafing of the ice and rocks, and for some reason put on our thick leather gloves. This done, we took the remainder of our gear and heavy robes, and having placed stones in them, threw them over the brink of the precipice, thrusting to find them again, should we ever reach its foot. Now our preparations were complete, and it was time for us to start upon perhaps one of the most desperate journeys ever undertaken by men of their own will. Yet we stayed a little, looking at each other in piteous fashion, for we could not speak. Only we embraced, and I confess, I think I wept a little. It all seemed so sad and hopeless, those longings endured through many years, these perpetual weary travellings, and now the end. I could not bear to think of that splendid man, my ward, my most dear friend, the companion of my life, who stood before me so full of beauty and of vigour, but who must within a few short minutes be turned into a heap of quivering, mangled flesh. For myself, it did not matter. I was old. It was time that I should die. I had lived innocently, if it were innocent to follow this lovely image, this siren of the caves, who lured us on to doom. No, I don't think that I thought of myself then, but I thought a great deal of Leo, and when I saw his determined face and flashing eyes as he nerved himself up to last endeavour, I was proud of him. So in broken accents I blessed him and wished him well through all the aeons, praying that I would be his companion to the end of time. In a few words and short he thanked me and gave me back my blessing. Then he muttered, "Come." So, side by side we began the terrible descent. At first it was easy enough, although a slip would have hurled us to eternity. But we were strong and skilful, accustomed to such places, moreover, and made none. About a quarter of the way down we paused, standing upon a great boulder that was embedded in the ice, and, turning round cautiously, leaned our backs against the glacier and looked about us. Truly, it was a horrible place, almost sheer. Nor did we learn much, for beneath us, 120 feet or more, the projecting bend cut off our view of what lay below. So, feeling that our nerves would not bear a prolonged contemplation of that dizzy gulf, once more we set our faces to the ice and proceeded on the downward climb. Now matters were more difficult, for the stones were fewer, and once or twice we must slide to reach them, not knowing if we should ever stop again. But the ropes which we threw over the angles of the rocks or salient points of ice, letting ourselves down by their help and drawing them after us when we reached the next foothold, saved us from disaster. Thus, at length we came to the bend, which was more than half-way down the precipice, being, so far as I could judge, about 200 feet from its lip, and saw 150 from the darksome bottom of the narrow gulf. Here were no stones, but only some rough ice, on which we sat to rest. "We must look," said Leo presently. But the question was, how to do this? Indeed, there was only one way to hang over the bend and discover what lay below. We read each other's thoughts without the need of words, and I made a motion as though I would start. "No," said Leo. "I am younger and stronger than you. Come, help me." And he began to fasten the end of his rope to a strong projecting point of ice. "Now," he said, "hold my ankles." It seemed an insanity, but there was nothing else to be done, so, fixing my heels in a niche, I grasped them, and slowly he slid forward till his body vanished into the middle. What he saw does not matter, for I saw it all afterwards, but what happened was that suddenly all his great weight came upon my arms with such a jerk that his ankles were torn from my grip. Or, who knows, perhaps in my terror I loosened them, obeying the natural impulse which prompts a man to save his own life. If so, may I be forgiven, but had I held on, I must have been jerked into the abyss. Then the rope ran out and remained taut. "Leo!" I screamed. "Leo!" And I heard a muffled voice saying, as I thought, "Come." What it really said was, "Don't come." But indeed, and may it go to my credit, I did not pause to think, but face outwards, just as I was sitting, began to slide and scramble down the ice. In 2 seconds I had reached the curve. In 3 I was over it. Beneath was what I can only describe as a great icicle broken off short, and separated from the cliff by about 4 yards of space. This icicle was not more than 15 feet in length, and sloped outwards, so that my descent was not sheer. Moreover, at the end of it, the trickling of water, or some such accident, had worn away the ice, leaving a little ledge, as broad perhaps as a man's hand. There were roughnesses on the surface below the curve, upon which my clothing caught. Also, I gripped them desperately with my fingers. Thus it came about that I slid down quite gently. My heels, landing upon the little ledge, remained almost upright, with outstretched arms, like a person crucified to a cross of ice. Then I saw everything, and the sight curdled the blood within my veins. Hanging upon the rope, 4 or 5 feet below the point, was Leo, out of reach of it, and out of reach of the cliff. As he hung, turning slowly round and round, much as, for in a dreadful, inconsequent fashion, the absurd similarity struck me even then, a joint turns before the fire. Below yawned the black gulf, and at the bottom of it, as far as beneath, appeared a faint white sheet of snow. That is what I saw. Think of it! Think of it! I crucified upon the ice, my heels resting upon a little ledge, my fingers grasping excrescences on which a bird could scarcely have found a foothold. Round and below me dizzy space. To climb back whence I came was impossible. To stir even was impossible, since one slip and I must be gone. And below me, hung like a spider to its cord, Leo turning slowly round and round. I could see that rope of green hide stretch beneath his weight, and the double knots in it slip and tighten. I remember wondering which would give first, the hide or the knots, or whether it would hold till he dropped from the noose limb by limb. Oh, I had been in many a perilous place, I who sprang from the swaying stones to the point of trembling spur, and missed my aim, but never, never in such a one as this. Agony took hold of me. A cold sweat burst from every pore. I could feel it running down my face like tears. My hair bristled upon my head, and below, in utter silence, Leo turned round, and each time he turned, his upcast eyes met mine with a look that was horrible to see. The silence was the worst of it. The silence and the helplessness.